You're probably wondering what happened to this tree. Well, here it is exactly a year later. I grafted it to save the tree. Citrus grafting may appear challenging, but I'll show you simple methods to become successful, even if it's your first attempt. There are many reasons for grafting, but not limited to. Unexpected quality of fruit. It finally produces fruit, but not what you've anticipated. Desire for another variety to maximize space, due to limited real estate in your home garden. Repair a damaged tree due to natural causes. Topping the tree and regrafting it will revive the tree. There are many instances where you hear homeowners extract the entire tree, assuming it's dead because the top is destroyed. As long as the rootstock is healthy, you can always regraft. Contrary to what you've heard, a tall tree isn't always the ideal candidate for a healthy rootstock. Instead, select a tree with the thickest trunk and the largest container your pocket can procure. This suggests a healthy tree and a large root ball hidden inside that container. Acquire viable rootstocks according to your agriculture zone. Specific cultivars should be utilized. You can also navigate to a local nursery store and purchase an already grafted citrus tree. This will give you an idea of what rootstock is used. In my zone, it's recommended to use Citrus trifoliata. It's also a very compatible rootstock that accepts all citrus varieties, and encouraged if you plan on keeping it in a pot due to its dwarf traits. Inspect the soil composition and visible signs of pests. By completing this step, you're allowing this plant to have dedicated resources to thrive. Keep your gardening tools well maintained and routinely sanitized to prevent sickness in plants. Select a tree that is 2 to 3 years of age as your rootstock candidate. Younger plants may struggle to recover from premature grafts. Collect viable rootstocks from your garden, or acquire them from the CCPP, the Citrus Clonal Protection Program, if you don't have any scions within reach. The link can be found in the description below. Avoid collecting scions that have already flushed. There won't be any viable buds to graft. Green or woody scions can be used. I prefer green scions if done during spring to summer, woody if it's fall to winter. Chances of takes are greatly reduced as spring ends. Locate buds on prospective scions. The more swollen the buds, the better the chances. Scions without visible buds will also take with extra care applied during grafting. Remove the leaves to help the scion retain moisture. Remove the petioles to expose the buds. Any visible thorns should also be removed to ensure a grafting seal. The perfect candidate for grafting. Visibly, you can see an exposed bud at the tip of the scion and 2 nodes below it. Inspect the scion for any dirt or damage to prevent mold. A sanitizing solution of 1 part hydrogen peroxide and 10 parts water can be sprayed on the scion and dried with a paper towel. There are many options when it comes to grafting material: plastic film, garden tape, or rubber bands. I prefer buddy tape due to its versatility. It's perfectly designed for grafting success. A finger-length buddy tape is plenty for scion wrapping. Focus on covering the entire scion as thin as possible for protection, allowing it to easily break the buddy tape seal upon a successful take. If your tree was purchased, make sure to inspect the quarantine procedures to protect the citrus agriculture in your region. Outbreaks of the citrus psyllid is one of many vectors that carry the citrus greening disease. Always inspect for foreign pests and plants that are nesting in the soil to prevent issues. Identify a topping location. It should be where the grafting union is located. A separate branch can be left for a multi-grafted tree, but it's not recommended for dwarf varieties. Sanitize pruning shears and allow to dry before making the cut. The tree should be watered a day or 2 before the grafting procedure to avoid saturation issues. The grafting union can be identified by abnormal callus, centralized growth, and discolored transition. Top the tree and perch the union to prevent unwanted growth. Locate a graft location for the scion before making an incision. Let's take a closer look at the anatomy of a citrus rootstock. Visually, you can see several layers of the trunk. Starting with the outer layer we refer to as the bark. Behind it is the inner bark, called the phloem. This precise incision reveals the phloem, highlighted in green. It's the tree's vascular tissue responsible for food production during photosynthesis, and the cambium layer to the right disguised in the transparent film, which is the growing part of the trunk and the candidate we'd like to introduce to our scion. It's difficult to locate the cambium layer. In order to help you understand, if you look closely on the razor blade, you can see the cambium layer mixed with some sapwood, and what remains of the trunk is the heartwood. Here's a closer look of the anatomy to help you understand it at a different angle. The incision should be cut through 1/3 portion of the heartwood. This provides a substantial amount of cambium layer contact with the scion. Mistakes happen often. That's why it's recommended to allow as much real estate as possible. Proceed with making another cut to stage the rootstock for grafting. Check for any contamination or inconsistent growth that can cause issues for the graft to take. Rock the razor side to side as you slowly cut through the bark. Make sure to have full control to prevent injury. I'll be utilizing the side veneer graft since the scions don't match the size of the rootstock. A bark cleft and even tongue graft will be as successful. Cut the scion to expose the cambium layer and a portion of the pith for a successful contact. To further improve the scion to take, flatten the surface of the scion until it's flush with the rootstock incision. To promote your chances of success, cut the opposite side of the scion to expose additional cambium layer. Avoid touching the exposed scion, this prevents contamination. Gently insert into opening until snug and align the scion to ensure the chances of success. Seal all exposed areas to prevent dryness or pests. Stretch to grafting tape and twist to create a tighter coverage. Extending it as far as possible helps create a firm seal. I like this method because it allows me to create a makeshift rope. Wrap the extended rope to secure the graft location. Firmly press the bark against the scion to create a flush seal while wrapping the grafting tape. Make any final adjustments to the scion to secure its posture while wrapping. Add another layer of grafting tape if high moisture is expected in your forecast. This will prevent molding issues due to high saturation. Count 2 to 3 nodes, then trim off the excess. Depending on the tree, you can increase the amount of nodes, but as a recommendation, start with 1 node per year according to the age of the tree. Seal the trim tip to protect it from the elements. Visually inspect for any issues such as dislodged bark, uneven posture, or pests surrounding the area. Wrap the aluminum foil with the shiny side outwards. This will protect the graft from heavy sunlight exposure and deter unwanted pests. Saturate and avoid fertilizing. It's not required during this stage. The bud grafting method is a similar process, but involves just the bud from the scion. To prepare it, you can follow the same procedure as the veneer graft. Instead, you'll just trim off the viable bud or a single node for the graft. Sealing the bud with grafting tape is optional, but I've had high success rates following this procedure. Prepare the bud by cutting the opposite side to expose the cambium layer. Many failures are caused by dried grafts, not poor contact. Flatten the surface of the bud to make it contour to the rootstock in order to achieve maximum contact. Gently insert the bud until it's a snug fit. Do not force it down, otherwise the bark will rupture. Seal the graft with grafting tape and make any final adjustments as needed. Level the top to make it flush if desired. Avoid cutting the bud. Cover the bud with aluminum foil to protect it from the elements and pests. Saturate the grafted rootstock to prevent it from drying out during recovery. After 2 weeks, we'll notice aggressive growth from visible flush. Thin out any unwanted flush to help it focus on developing a new structure. It's not uncommon to see both rootstock and graft competing for growth. Prune off the rootstock growth to avoid wasting energy. There are situations where it's difficult to identify the flush. Focus your efforts by tracing back to the graft. If it's growing from the scion, keep it. If not, purge it. Select multiple branches if a dwarf-sized tree is your goal. Otherwise, select one branch if you'd like it to achieve a larger height. Any additional growth below the graft union should be purged to prevent unwanted growth. Routinely check for undesired growth and pests. Newly grafted trees are prone to infestations. It's important to direct the tree for growth, since this is the most crucial time of its development stage. Choose if you like a containerized dwarf or planted in ground. This beautiful specimen is going to be a dwarf, so I'll be allowing several branches to extend outwards once it reaches my desired height. In regards to timing, it's recommended to remove the protective foil as soon as you see a bud protruding. This indicates a successful union and it's ready to photosynthesize during its recovery stage. It's extremely rewarding to see grafts take. Success rates vary. Starting in spring, it will yield a 99% chance. Summer is 49%, fall is 29%, and winter is 9%. I've grafted thousands of trees and plants, including apples, citrus, grapes, vegetative plants, and decorative plants, such as bonsais. Statistically, I feel 100% confident in my grafting abilities, but it's always that 1% that fails, which is very mysterious to me. After 2 months, the tree will reach maturity, allowed to continue its development journey if you like a more aesthetic growth structure. The grafting tape will recede on its own as the tree continues to grow. Remove it if desired. After 2 months, you'll notice aggressive growth in every direction. You may encounter an issue where 2 equally mature branches protruding out of the graft union. During this stage, make a decision on which branch you'd like to retain. By keeping both branches, you'll severely impact its evolution. When shaping your tree, thin out the branches to provide a clear view before making the final cut to remove it entirely. As words of encouragement, do not be discouraged by your failed grafts. Instead, learn from them and understand what you could do differently to ensure success. Pruning is required during this stage. If left unchecked, the growth becomes unmanageable and you'll end up with multiple branches growing inwards, which isn't healthy for the tree. You should never be afraid of pruning citrus trees. They grow very aggressively. In fact, heavy pruning makes them much happier. Cleaning the graft union is optional. It's encouraged if you like a more aesthetic appearance. Exactly a year later, you can expect similar growth. The opening of the branch will eventually be overgrown and form a strong foundation. Even though fruiting is in sight, I still discourage fruit set as the growth becomes much more accelerated without the flowers present. If it's a must to sample or identify the tree from a non-lineage scion, I encourage 1 to 3 fruits to set for identification purposes. Allow this magnificent tree to mature. Before you know it, baskets will be needed for a harvest. I hope this instructional video provides you enough confidence to graft your own tree. This approach not only saves our citrus trees, but it also expands possibilities. Please pass this knowledge to those who share our interests so they too can have the courage to engage in grafting.